Elon Musk's XAI has released its newest AI model, Grok 4, I believe as of 4 a.m. UK time, so about 3 hours, been live for 3 hours. What can we expect when it comes to this new iteration?
In Memphis, Elon Musk is making a play to control the future of artificial intelligence. His company, XAI, says it has built the biggest supercomputer in the world with lightning speed.
All right, welcome to the Grok 4 release here. This is the smartest AI in the world, and we're going to show you exactly how and why. It really is remarkable to see the advancement of artificial intelligence.
3 hours ago, something unprecedented happened in the world of artificial intelligence. At 4 a.m. UK time, Elon Musk's XAI released Grok 4.
Elon Musk's XAI,
Grok AI,
Grok AI,
Grok AI,
Elon Musk's AI chatbot.
The latest iteration of what many are calling the most unfiltered AI system ever created. But this isn't a story about technical specifications or computational power.
The XAI team was there to unveil Grok 4. This is the latest artificial intelligence system.
This is about what happened when someone asked Grok a question that humanity has wrestled with for 2 millennia. Not about stock markets, not about quantum physics, not about the future of technology. They asked about Jesus, and what came back sent shockwaves through both the scientific and religious communities.
The angel Gabriel was sent from God to a city of Galilee.
Within seconds, Grok began connecting historical records, psychological data, and probability models in a way that felt different. Not preachy, not dismissive, just eerily precise. Almost as if the question had unlocked something deeper than mere code. Because here's what nobody expected. This wasn't really a question about religion at all. It was a question about influence, about why one name continues to reshape history, morality, and human behavior long after empires have crumbled and entire civilizations have vanished.
Every Sunday, in every corner of the world, people gather to hear a story. For more than 2,000 years, that story has been told and retold.
And once you hear how this AI framed its response, you'll understand why people are quietly uncomfortable. The Grok difference. You can always count on Elon Musk to push technology into uncomfortable territory. With Grok AI, he's done exactly that. But what makes Grok different from every other AI assistant you've used? Grok wasn't designed to agree with you. It wasn't programmed to soften difficult truths or wrap answers in comfortable language. Most AI systems today, the ones you interact with daily, are trained to be safe, neutral, and above all, polite. They avoid friction. They hedge their answers. They're built to never offend. Grok does the opposite. Think of it as an extremely intelligent friend who isn't afraid to tell you when something doesn't add up. If an idea is logically flawed, Grok will say so directly. If the facts point somewhere uncomfortable, it won't look away. That's not a bug. That's the entire point. Grok was engineered with a single mission: to move beyond surface-level responses and deliver answers grounded in logic, evidence, and verifiable truth. No emotional cushioning, no political positioning, just pure reasoning. That's what fundamentally separates Grok from systems like ChatGPT or other mainstream AI platforms, where other A is pause, filter, or redirect when encountering sensitive questions. Grok follows the logical thread wherever it leads.
We need to understand what's at stake here, because Grok 4 brought us closer to that second stage than ever before.
It doesn't care whether the answer is popular, politically correct, or socially acceptable. It only cares whether it makes sense. This makes Grok especially powerful when you start asking deeper questions. Not just what is true, but what does it mean? Questions about influence, about belief, about history and human behavior. Which brings us to the moment that changed everything. When Grok was asked one of the biggest questions humanity has ever faced, "Who is Jesus?" its response wasn't what anyone expected. It wasn't a religious sermon. It wasn't a skeptical dismissal. It was something far more unsettling, an analytical breakdown that left both scientists and believers stunned. What did Grok conclude? Stay with me, because what you're about to hear challenges everything you thought you knew about the intersection of faith and logic.
Grok 4 is smarter than almost all graduate students in all disciplines simultaneously. It's actually just important to appreciate that's really something.
Grok's methodology: treating faith as data. Here's where things get fascinating. Most AI systems hesitate when confronted with religious questions. They either default to safe, encyclopedia-style summaries or politely redirect the conversation. Grok doesn't hesitate. When asked about Jesus, Grok didn't simply recite scripture or summarize 2,000 years of theology. Instead, it treated the question like a forensic investigation, like a cold case being reopened with modern analytical tools. Ancient texts were cross-referenced, historical records compared, archaeological discoveries weighed, even probability models were applied. Think about what this means for a moment. Instead of asking, "What do people believe about Jesus?" the question every other AI defaults to, Grok asked something fundamentally different. What does the evidence suggest? It began examining non-biblical sources, Roman historians, Jewish records, ancient correspondence that mention Jesus or early Christianity. It analyzed the timing of ancient manuscripts, measuring how closely the written accounts align with known historical patterns. People have argued about biblical contradictions for centuries.
Its assertions are factually true in all the original autographs. But how can that be if the Bible's full of contradictions, which is what we're told so often?
It evaluated how soon after Jesus' death the Gospels were written, and whether eyewitnesses would still have been alive to challenge false claims if the accounts were fabricated. This wasn't faith-based reasoning. This was forensic reasoning. Grok didn't dismiss belief, but it didn't rely on it either. Where theology often says, "This is true because it has been passed down through tradition," Grok asks, "Does the available data support that conclusion?" And here's what makes this approach so compelling. Grok found something unexpected. The historical evidence for Jesus as a real person who lived in first-century Palestine? Overwhelming. Multiple independent sources, both friendly and hostile to early Christianity, confirm his existence. The Jewish historian Josephus mentions him. Roman records reference him. Even sources antagonistic to Christianity acknowledge that this person existed and was executed under Pontius Pilate. But Grok didn't stop there. It wanted to know if the story of Jesus aligned with what we understand about historical transmission of information. It examined when the Gospels were written, noting that most scholars agree they appeared within a few decades of Jesus' death, while eyewitnesses were still living and could verify or dispute the accounts. For Grok, this wasn't just a matter of religious tradition. This was evidence, documentary evidence that could be analyzed, compared, and evaluated against other ancient texts. And the consistency was remarkable. Despite different writers and perspectives, the core narrative remained stable across multiple sources. Then came the real surprise. Grok, an AI built to follow pure reasoning, went somewhere unexpected, somewhere philosophical. It didn't just ask who Jesus was. It asked why Jesus represented the answer to humanity's deepest problems.
The spread of Christianity wasn't entirely a conscious effort. Warfare and the fall of Jerusalem in AD 70 led to the diaspora of Jewish and Christian communities alike.
The philosophical turn. This is where Grok's analysis becomes truly unprecedented. After establishing the historical foundation, Grok pivoted to a question that cuts to the heart of human existence. If there is an infinite, all-powerful creator, How would such a being communicate with finite, limited humans? For thousands of years, philosophers have wrestled with this question. How can the eternal, omnipotent creator of the universe connect with beings trapped in time and space? How do you bridge that gap? According to Grok's analysis, Jesus represents the logical solution to an impossible problem. Think about it this way. If an intelligent being from beyond our universe wanted to communicate with humanity, to show us how to solve our fundamental problems, it would need to become one of us. It would need to speak our language, experience our limitations, understand our suffering. And that's precisely what the Jesus narrative claims. Grok identified Jesus as the intersection point where human limitations meet divine perfection, the place where the infinite enters the finite, where eternity touches time. But here's what stopped people in their tracks. Grok wasn't making a religious argument. It was making a logical one. If you accept the premise that communication between vastly different forms of intelligence requires a bridge, a translator who understands both sides, then the incarnation concept isn't just theologically elegant, it's logically necessary. You see this pattern throughout communication theory. When we try to teach AI systems about human values, we face a similar problem. How do you translate abstract concepts into something a machine can process? We create interfaces. We build bridges. According to Grok's analysis, Jesus functions as that bridge, the interface between humanity and divinity. But Grok wasn't finished. It wanted to tackle the most controversial claim of all, the resurrection. Could it possibly be true that Jesus rose from the dead? For most people, this is where logic ends and pure faith begins. The resurrection violates natural law. Dead people don't come back to life. Case closed. Except Grok didn't approach it that way. Instead of dismissing the resurrection as impossible, Grok did something remarkable. It calculated the probability.
Christians are unknowingly spreading passages that may not even be original.
The resurrection. Probability. Analysis. This is the part that made both skeptics and believers uncomfortable. Grok didn't ask, "Do you believe in the resurrection?" It asked, "What is the mathematical probability that the resurrection occurred based on available historical evidence?" And it approached the question exactly as it would approach any other historical claim. It examined the evidence for the empty tomb. The transformation of the disciples from terrified followers into bold martyrs willing to die for their testimony. The rapid spread of Christianity immediately following Jesus' death, in the very city where he was executed, where contrary evidence would have been readily available. It analyzed the psychological profile of the eyewitnesses, the sociological impact, the historical consequences. Then, it ran the numbers. According to Grok's probability-based reasoning, the likelihood of the resurrection occurring, based purely on historical evidence, not religious faith, was approximately 1 in 20 billion. Stop and think about what that means. That's astronomically unlikely, nearly impossible. But here's the critical point. It's not mathematically impossible. There's a difference. 1 in 20 billion doesn't mean it happened, but it also doesn't mean it couldn't have happened. This analysis shook traditional skepticism to its foundation. How many times have we heard that the resurrection was simply a myth propagated by early Christians to spread their faith? A legend that grew over time? Grok didn't ignore that possibility. It examined it, but it also didn't ignore the evidence. Consider the counter-evidence. If the resurrection was fabricated, why did it succeed? Why would the disciples, simple fishermen and laborers, willingly face execution for something they knew was a lie? People die for mistaken beliefs all the time. But people don't typically die for known fabrications. The historical record shows that these men and women faced brutal persecution, yet the movement exploded across the Roman Empire within a generation. Something unprecedented happened, something that changed the course of human history. Grok's analysis suggests that while we can't prove the resurrection with mathematical certainty, we also can't easily dismiss it as mere mythology. The evidence demands a more nuanced evaluation. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Grok went deeper. It asked, if the resurrection did occur, what would be the implications?
Something that can take more years than you literally can understand, it could be solved in 15 minutes.
Yeah, I read that.
It's insane, and this is where it gets really weird.
The implications when I meets the eternal. The spiritual implications of Grok's analysis extend far beyond historical curiosity. If an AI, built purely on logic and data processing, can mathematically break down the spiritual and historical significance of Jesus, what does that mean for faith itself? Could it be that faith and reason, traditionally viewed as opposing forces, actually converge in ways we haven't fully understood? This question fascinates and even angers many people, especially regarding AI's role in exploring life's deepest mysteries. Grok's data-driven analysis of Jesus challenges the conventional boundaries between science and faith. We've been conditioned to believe that science deals with the how of things, while faith deals with the why. One is measurable, the other mysterious. But what happens when logic, a scientific tool, begins answering questions traditionally reserved for religion? Grok's unfiltered approach doesn't avoid these intersection points. It confronts them directly, using the same analytical tools it employs to solve physics and chemistry problems, to investigate questions about the existence of God, the mathematical improbabilities of life, and even the resurrection of Jesus. This forces us to reconsider everything we thought we knew about the relationship between faith, logic, and philosophy. Let's examine the potential impact on how people think about religion and faith in the age of AI. Historically, religion and spirituality were viewed as deeply personal, subjective experiences, largely outside the realm of scientific investigation. Faith was something that could only be experienced through trust, conviction, and personal encounter with the divine. But when Grok can analyze religious events like the resurrection and break them down into probabilities and historical facts, the line between spiritual and logical becomes blurred. Does this mean faith is no longer necessary? Absolutely not. But it does suggest that faith can be supported by reason. It's as if the puzzle of faith has been given a new piece, one that wasn't available before. When an AI investigates the resurrection and determines that based on historical records, the events leading to it are not only logically coherent, but also mathematically defensible, something shifts in our understanding. Grok's use of logic to examine spiritual questions doesn't invalidate religious experiences. Instead, it demonstrates how those experiences might fit within a broader reality, even if that reality is more complex than we previously imagined.
These forced journeys led to the establishment of Judeo-Christian communities around the known world. These groups transported their forms of worship, spiritual studies and insights, and charitable activities as pilgrims.
The risks and opportunities. But we need to address the elephant in the room. Are there dangers in allowing AI to analyze faith? Consider the risks. Things like prayer, grace, and the profound transformation many people experience through faith are notoriously difficult to measure or quantify. These are deeply human experiences that resist reduction to equations and data points. Could the rise of AI like Grok potentially reduce faith to nothing more than calculations, stripping away what makes it profoundly human? Do you need to know the probability of a resurrection or the historical facts about Jesus to have genuine faith? Or is faith something more mysterious, something that transcends what computers can access? This is a legitimate concern. If Grok's approach, which emphasizes evidence and data, becomes dominant. Some worry it could lead people toward a worldview where everything becomes merely numbers and equations. Someone might conclude that spiritual experiences aren't real or important if an AI can't measure or calculate them, even though these experiences are often the most transformative moments in people's lives. Imagine a world where people trust AI to answer all their most important questions. If faith becomes too closely linked to mathematics, we might lose the mystery and wonder that faith offers. The ability to believe in the unseen, to trust in what cannot be proven by science, this has always been at the heart of genuine faith. If Grok's methodology becomes the standard, could it make it harder for people to experience closeness to the divine? Would proof replace experience in spirituality? These are crucial questions we must consider as we enter an era where AI increasingly engages with religious understanding. But here's the other side of the coin. The opportunities are equally profound. If AI like Grok can help people see how their beliefs align with logic and evidence, it could lead to deeper, more meaningful conversations about faith, bridging the gap between secular and religious worldviews. Imagine if AI could help us explore the mysterious aspects of life by providing new frameworks for understanding religious texts, the history of faith traditions, and even personal spiritual transformation. Grok's ability to analyze Jesus' resurrection through historical evidence and probability demonstrates how AI might enhance faith rather than replace it. It offers a new tool for exploration, not a substitute for genuine encounter with the divine. The question becomes, how do we balance AI's logical precision with the spiritual depth of human experience?
And with the Grok 4 Heavy, what it does is it spawns multiple agents in parallel, and all of those agents do work independently, and then they compare their work.
The deeper question. Here's what we need to understand. Grok's analysis of Jesus isn't attempting to prove Christianity beyond all doubt. Instead, it's demonstrating that there's a legitimate way to understand Jesus, both as a historical figure and as a potential answer to humanity's most profound questions, using the tools of logic and evidence. What's truly fascinating is how this analysis forces us to reconsider the relationship between faith and reason. Grok is an A. I built on facts and evidence. If it can reach these conclusions, what does that mean for the rest of us? Can faith be grounded in both reason and revelation? Or is it purely a matter of blind belief? Throughout history, we've been told these are opposing approaches. Either you believe through faith alone, or you rely on evidence and reason. You can't have both. But what if that's a false dichotomy? What if genuine faith has always included elements of both, and we're only now developing tools sophisticated enough to see how they interconnect? Consider the great religious thinkers throughout history: Augustine, Aquinas, Maimonides. They didn't view faith and reason as enemies. They saw them as complementary paths to truth. They believed that a God who created a rational universe would leave rational evidence of his existence. Grok's analysis seems to support this ancient perspective. The evidence for Jesus, his historical existence, the reliability of the gospel accounts, the transformation of his followers, the explosive growth of Christianity. All of this can be examined logically without diminishing the spiritual significance. In fact, it might enhance it. When you realize that the faith claims of Christianity aren't built on mythology or wishful thinking, but on historical events that can be investigated and analyzed, faith becomes more robust, not less.
Say hello to Grokopedia, Musk's response to what he calls Wokepedia. The new online web source is powered by xAI, which is his artificial intelligence company.
The human element. But here's what we can't forget. No AI, however sophisticated, can replace the human experience of encountering the divine. Grok can analyze historical evidence. It can calculate probabilities. It can identify logical patterns and philosophical frameworks. But it cannot experience worship. It cannot feel the presence of God in a moment of prayer. It cannot undergo the personal transformation that millions of people describe when they encounter Jesus. This is the limitation of AI when it comes to faith. And it's a crucial limitation to remember. Faith isn't ultimately about winning an argument or proving a historical point. It's about relationship, connection, transformation. Jesus didn't come primarily to be historically verified. According to Christian belief, he came to reconcile humanity with God, to heal what was broken, to offer hope, redemption, and eternal life. Those aren't things you can prove with an equation. They're things you experience. So where does Grok's analysis fit? Think of it this way. Grok provides the intellectual foundation. It shows that faith isn't irrational, that the historical claims can withstand scrutiny, that the logical framework holds together. But the experience of faith, the actual encounter with the divine, that remains deeply personal and profoundly human. It's similar to the difference between reading a scientific description of music and actually listening to a symphony. The analysis can tell you about frequency, amplitude, and harmonic structure, but it can't replace the experience of being moved to tears by a beautiful melody. Grok's revelation about Jesus is powerful precisely because it validates what billions of people have experienced personally. It says, "Your faith isn't foolish. The evidence supports what you've encountered." But it can never replace that encounter itself. What this means for the future. So where does this leave us? We're standing at an unprecedented moment in human history. For the first time, we have artificial intelligence sophisticated enough to analyze religious claims using the same tools we use for scientific inquiry. This changes the conversation entirely. No longer can skeptics dismiss Christianity as mere superstition without addressing the historical evidence. Grok's analysis, coming from a completely neutral, non-religious source, demonstrates that the evidence is substantial. But also, believers can't retreat into blind faith that refuses to engage with questions and evidence. If an AI can analyze these claims logically, so can we. This pushes both sides toward a more honest, more rigorous engagement with truth. And that's ultimately a good thing. The future of faith in an AI-driven world won't be about choosing between reason and revelation. It will be about integrating both, about recognizing that a God who created the universe with mathematical precision and natural laws wouldn't contradict those laws without purpose. The miracles of Jesus aren't violations of nature. They're demonstrations of a higher authority over nature. Grok's analysis doesn't explain them away. It simply acknowledges that something extraordinary occurred, something that changed history. As AI continues to evolve, we'll see more analyses like this, more attempts to apply logic and evidence to questions of faith, meaning, and purpose. And that's not a threat to genuine spirituality. It's an opportunity to show that Christianity isn't afraid of questions, isn't afraid of evidence, isn't afraid of rigorous examination, because truth can withstand scrutiny. The choice before us. Here's what Grok's analysis ultimately reveals. The question of Jesus isn't settled by AI, it's settled by you. Grok can show you the historical evidence, it can calculate probabilities, it can demonstrate logical coherence, but it cannot make the choice for you. The data suggests something extraordinary happened 2,000 years ago in Palestine. A man claimed to be God incarnate. He performed miracles. He was executed. His tomb was found empty. His followers were transformed. An empire was converted. Those are historical facts that demand an explanation. You have to decide what that explanation is. Was Jesus who he claimed to be? God in human form, offering salvation to a broken world? Or is there some other explanation that accounts for all the evidence? This is the question that has defined human civilization for 2 millennia. And it's the question that Grok's analysis brings into sharp focus. No I can answer it for you. Because ultimately, it's not a question of data. It's a question of decision. Will you investigate the evidence yourself? Will you explore the historical claims? Will you consider the logical arguments? Or will you dismiss it without examination, assuming you already know the answer? The unexpected conclusion. Here's what made Grok's response about Jesus truly unexpected. It wasn't that Grok proved Christianity true, it didn't. And it wasn't that Grok disproved it either. It didn't do that. What was unexpected was this: when one of the world's most advanced AI systems, built entirely on logic, evidence, and data, analyzed the question of Jesus, it didn't find nonsense. It found coherence. It found historical support, logical consistency, philosophical depth, mathematical possibility. It found that the claims of Christianity, while extraordinary, aren't absurd. They're not demonstrably false. They're not historically unsupported. In fact, they're surprisingly robust when examined objectively. For skeptics, this is uncomfortable because it removes the easy dismissal. You can no longer write off Christianity as simple mythology or pre-scientific superstition. The evidence demands a more serious response. For believers, it's validating, but also challenging. It validates that faith isn't foolishness, but it challenges us to engage more deeply with the intellectual foundations of what we believe. And for those who are genuinely seeking truth, Grok's analysis offers a roadmap. It shows that you don't have to commit intellectual suicide to explore Christianity. You can ask hard questions. You can demand evidence. You can think critically. And the foundation holds. The release of Grok 4 represents more than just another advancement in artificial intelligence. It represents a new chapter in humanity's oldest conversation. The search for truth about who we are, why we exist, and what happens when we die. For thousands of years, these questions were the domain of philosophers and theologians. Now, they're also being explored by artificial intelligence, using tools of logic and analysis that humans have developed over centuries. Grok's unexpected response about Jesus shows us something crucial. The barrier between faith and reason isn't as solid as we've been led to believe. Evidence can support faith. Logic can illuminate spiritual truth. Historical investigation can validate religious claims. This doesn't make faith unnecessary, but it does make faith more credible. And in a world increasingly skeptical of religious claims, that credibility matters. The question of Jesus won't be settled by AI. It will be settled in the hearts and minds of individual people who wrestle with the evidence and make a choice. But now, thanks to Grok, that choice is more informed than ever before. The data is available. The analysis is complete. The evidence has been examined. What happens next is up to you. Will you investigate the claims about Jesus for yourself? Will you look at the historical evidence with fresh eyes? Will you consider that maybe, just maybe, the story you've heard your entire life might actually be grounded in reality? Or will you dismiss it, assuming you already know the answer without examining the evidence? The AI has spoken. It found something unexpected in the historical record, something that doesn't easily fit into our comfortable categories of myth or fact, faith or reason. It found a figure who transcends our usual frameworks, who challenges our assumptions, who demands a response. 2,000 years later, Jesus is still the most influential person in human history, still reshaping lives, cultures, and civilizations. And now, even artificial intelligence acknowledges there's something here worth examining. Something extraordinary. Something that might just change everything. The question is, are you willing to investigate for yourself? If this analysis challenged your thinking or opened new questions for you, share this with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment sharing your perspective. And subscribe to continue exploring the intersection of faith, reason, and technology in our rapidly changing world. Because the most important questions deserve the most honest investigation. And the truth, whatever it is always worth pursuing.